In this lesson, let's move on and tackle some more complicated subjects. In my opinion, there's no real anatomy knowledge needed to be able to draw something. The most important thing is that you use reference and that you try to break that reference down into simple shapes, because we have been practicing those and we are able to copy those. For instance, when you look at this bird, you could get overwhelmed by all the details that you see in the photo, or you can simplify it. And a way to simplify it is to look at shapes inside of the subject. So what shapes can we see inside of this bird? Now what I see are some ovals, this shape for its tail, and that simple beak shape. And copying these simple shapes is a lot easier than copying the entire bird. Then we have these lemons. I think it's pretty easy to find the basic shapes inside of these. I can see a lot of circles. So when trying to draw these lemons, try not to think about all the details that you see, but just try to see all of these circles. And at the same time, also keep an eye on lengths, of course. For instance, when making your sketch, you can compare the length of the bottom of this lemon to the bottom of the photo, and then the length of the lemon compared to the length of the top area. When trying to draw subjects, it's important to isolate these kind of things, to not get distracted by the entire picture, but just to be able to look at these simple lengths and comparing those with your sketch. So you can look at the basic shapes, the lengths, but you can also look at negative spaces, negative shapes, just like we did earlier with the exercise. For instance, here in the corner, you can see a little rounded triangle shape. And this is also a pretty distinct shape. If you have made a sketch, don't just try to look if your circles look the same as these, but also check that negative shape. Sometimes looking at those shapes will make it easier to spot mistakes in your sketch and to fix them. Now for a complicated subject like this cat, of course you can look at the shapes inside of the cat, like a circle for its head, maybe an oval for its body. But what I also like to do is trap subjects in lines. I try to just box them with straight lines only. I try to forget about curves and make these lines as simple as possible. Because like we know from the exercises, it's way easier to copy very simple shapes with clear angles than it is to copy more complicated, rounded, curved shapes. And you can use that to your advantage. So with this subject, for instance, what you could do is forget about the cat, forget about the picture. Let's turn that off and just look at those shapes. And then we can try and make a sketch of those shapes. So when you want to sketch a complicated subject, you can just make an overlay with these lines or with basic shapes, and then try to copy that sketch. Because that is a lot easier than looking at the entire cat with all its details. And a shape like this, for instance, for its ear, these angles are a lot easier to read. So you can simply use this and again make imaginary extended lines. Look at negative shapes. Look at the shape of this area, for instance. I do need to move my sketch a little bit more to the right. And this way, you can make a complicated subject like this super simplified. Then we have that nose here, which is a short line. And then we can extend that a little bit to find the part where the eye is. It's not much different than like the mirroring exercise, for example. And in the same way, you can check your sketch. We can actually just move our sketch on here. And then we can fix our mistakes. You can see that the eye is a little bit too low. And over here, the angle is not made properly. The ear is in the wrong space. But you can go over and fix your sketch. And then once you have done that, you can continue. You can turn on the photo with the real shapes, with the real cat. And then you can use that guide, use those lines to guide you in the rest of the sketching process. You can start adding the rounded shapes of the cat, of its nose. You can start adding that rounded shape of the eye. You can start adding in details, but you will have those lines as an anchor point, as a reference point. You can see, for instance, where that little paw is compared to those lines that you have just created. Everything is about making things more manageable and more measurable.